With all this nonsense about expanding the college football playoff to 24 teams, we learned this week that Mario Cristobal is the only official in the ACC with any common sense.
You are Locked On Canes, your daily podcast on the Miami Hurricanes, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
I am Alex Donno, and on this episode of Locked On Canes, we'll talk about a very slight but really good schedule change for the Miami versus Virginia Tech game coming up this season in November. Mark Fletcher, he's podcasting now. I mean, I know I could not do Fletcher's job on the football field. Apparently, he can do my job pretty well. You know, Fletcher talked about the secret sauce for him, why he was able to be so successful in the college football playoff, but you guys know I am not a fan of the now ever more likely expansion of the college football playoff to 24 teams. I think it's way too much. And we bring on the Postcast king, our man Grease. And I guess, Grease, if we, in a couple of years, if we're at 24 teams, maybe you'll have a couple of extra postcasts to do. That might not be the worst thing in the world for you. But, you know, Mario Cristobal was on with Kevin Clark of ESPN this week. Cristobal's done a lot of media because of the ACC meetings that were happening in Amelia Island. Jacksonville is wrapped up midweek. But Cristobal, despite the fact that ACC officials are almost unanimously in favor of expanding the playoff, Mario Cristobal is not. He talked about the 24 playoff being too big. Why play the regular season if you're doing 24? And then maybe even more importantly, Grease, Cristobal also spoke out against automatic bids, because we hear about the SEC and the Big Ten fighting for, do we get automatically? Is it 6 teams per year in the playoff, 4 teams, 8 teams? How many do we give to the peons of the ACC and the Big 12 and so on? Mario Cristobal's philosophy is the best 12 teams should be in, regardless of what conference you're in. Put in the best 12, or I guess put in the best 24 is where we're going to be at in a couple of years. What say you?
I say the same thing. We just talked about this before the show. I mean, how much better would the playoffs have been last year, Alex, if Notre Dame and Texas had been in? You know, instead of those teams that no one even thinks about, cares about.
Yeah, JMU and Tulane, just lambs to the slaughter. Just throw them in there so they can get blown out.
Give them the money, which is what everybody wants, right? But they're not equals, and they should not be treated as equals. They're nowhere close to equals. And I think if you go to automatic bids, it ruins everything. Now, I could argue all day long, 12 teams is perfect, right? 24 teams, however many teams they want to say, the top teams, they want to get the whole top 25 in there. Fine. You know, if they did 24, that wouldn't be the worst thing in the world. But the automatic bids, to me, is where you start really guaranteeing conferences a certain number of teams. I think the SEC and the Big Ten's on top right now, right? The SEC's been in a little bit of a down cycle. Look at Miami's record against the SEC recently, right? Really, really great record against the SEC. But having the best teams in there that play the toughest schedules, and the way that Mario said it, don't punish the elite programs that schedule hard games and recruit and play at a championship level. And that's what you would be doing with the automatic bids and putting so many teams in there. And that's from a guy who barely made it by the skin of his teeth last year and went to the chip. And he's saying that. So that's the side of Mario I really love. Mario's like, you know, you got something to say, I got something to say. Roll up your sleeves. I'll roll up mine. We'll duke it out. And whoever the best man is wins. And that's what translates on the football field, right? May the best team win. Now, when you start getting too many teams in there, you could end up like what you get with Major League Baseball, right? How many world championships have been soiled by teams like the 97 Marlins that managed to make it as a wild card, and then they disband the whole team, right? But the point is, you get that hot team at the end of the year, they make it through a one-game playoff, they make it in, and they ride that wave all the way because they're red hot at the end, but they didn't play well for a lot of the year. And I don't think those teams should be rewarded and allowed in, and I definitely don't want to see that in college football. You've already got 2 lost teams in the playoffs. What do you want? 4 lost teams? 5 lost teams?
Oh, yeah, and you know we'd get that. There would be 4 lost teams getting in, no question.
Yeah, I don't want that any more than Mario does. So, and I applaud him for speaking out against this entire weak conference that Donno Shalala got us trapped in. And I hate the ACC. I like ACC basketball, but I've hated the fact that we were in the Big East and the ACC to begin with. I loved it when we were independent. Those days are gone, but I think we should be an independent within the conference, which is what Mario's doing. He's going against the whole grain. And one last thing I want to add to this, Alex, is of course ACC officials are going to want that expanded because not many teams in the ACC are very good. Most teams, if not all except Miami and maybe a couple others through the years, will never sniff the playoff at 12 teams, but would make it at 24. So they have a reason to say that. Mario has many reasons to disagree with him, and I'm glad we have a coach who takes that stand and doesn't just go with the conference line, and that the school just doesn't go with the conference line.
Yeah, because like obviously from where Mario sits, like if you could say, hey, but coach, you could maybe get into the playoff as the 24th best team in the country. Like he's not interested in being the 24th best team in the country. Like it's, you know, it's top 12 or bust with the expectations being even higher. And when you talk about Greece, all this is obviously, as we all know, driven by money, and fans need to understand the greed surrounding college football. College football has become such a cash cow that greed is driving all of these decisions. There was an episode, it was either Tuesday or Wednesday of this week, of Locked On ACC, where Kenton Gibbs and I, like, we uncovered the web of greed, how all these different parties and conferences have different priorities. So, you know, ESPN, who is the current rights holder for the college football playoff, they get all the games. They do like sub-license a couple of games to TNT, but they own those rights that they sub-license. So ESPN is actually fighting against college playoff expansion. And the reason why ESPN is against it is if it expands past 14 teams, they lose their exclusive rights, and the additional games get auctioned off probably to Fox, who would be the highest bidder. And Greece, the reason why the Big Ten are the ones that are really pushing for expansion to 24 is because their TV partner is Fox. So if Fox gets more money for the Big Ten. So there's another angle of greed. The SEC, they're fighting against playoff expansion. So a good thing that they're doing, but they're fighting against it for the wrong reasons. The reason why the SEC wants to stay at 12 is their conference championship game on ESPN is by far the most valuable in the country in terms of TV deals. And if they expand to 24, they get rid of conference championship games. The SEC conference championship game is worth $80 million. So they don't want to sacrifice that. So the SEC is fighting to keep the playoffs smaller, but they're fighting for it for reasons of greed. So everybody has their hands out trying to get money here. It really is. When you peel back the layers of the onion, it goes to show you it's all about the almighty dollar for all of these different parties.
No, and college football to me for life has always been, hey, you know, it's do or die every Saturday, right? Well, now it's every other night of the week also for money, but do or die every week, right? And I remember Miami teams, and you remember Ken Dorsey's sophomore year, we talked about that. They lost the opener at Washington, kept him out of the national championship game, right? And Florida State, who we beat that year and had the same number of losses, they went over us. And then there's always those arguments and people wouldn't do the right thing. But when you start devaluing the regular season in college football, I don't think it's like the NFL. You're not going to recover from that. Look at Miami's schedule this year. Do any of these games get you excited? Don't get me in trouble here, Alex, but there's one game that excites me on the entire schedule, and it's Notre Dame, because we're in the ACC and everybody in the ACC sucks. There, I said it. You know, like we're not playing any other big games. We're not playing any SEC teams. We're not playing any Big Ten teams. We're not going on the road like we used to and beating teams like Michigan and Nebraska. And, you know, we're not able to do that because there are so many conference games now. And then you're going to take and expand the playoffs. You're going to devalue the regular season even more. You're going to get rid of the conference championship games, which actually don't matter anyway, because we weren't in the conference championship game last year and we still made the playoff over the teams that were in it. So I don't know what the NCAA can do to further screw things up, but I have 100% faith they'll always find ways to do it.
That is for sure. Well, and you mentioned something about, you know, every night of the week, we've got college games. We did get some good news about a scheduling change for the Hurricanes this upcoming season. We'll get to that. Plus, pretty cool story from Mark Fletcher Jr. as to why things clicked for him in the playoffs last year. We got the Postcast King with us. I'm Alex Donno. We continue here on this brand new episode of Locked On Canes. Folks, if you've ever opened up your bank account and thought, Where did all my money go? You're not alone. Keeping track of subscriptions, spending, and bills, it gets overwhelming fast. That's where Rocket Money comes in, helping you take control of your finances all in one place. Rocket Money tracks all your subscriptions in one spot. It can help cancel the ones you don't need with just a few taps. It automatically categorizes your spending so you can actually see where your money is going, and you can set budgets, get alerts, and stay on top of upcoming bills. It just makes everything feel more organized and gives you a clearer picture of your finances day to day. Rocket Money is a personal finance app that helps you find and cancel unwanted subscriptions, monitors your spending, and helps lower your bills so you can grow your savings. Let Rocket Money help you reach your financial goals faster. Join at rocketmoney.com/lockedon. That's rocketmoney.com/lockedon. Thank you so much for making Locked On Canes your first listen. Make sure you join the Everydayer Club. Hit that all-access tier and get exclusive episodes of the Canes Colada, newsletters, Discord chat access, one-on-one texting with me, and so many other great benefits. Become an Everydayer Club all-access member at lockedoncanes.supercast.com or click the link in the show notes below. We got the Postcast King, Jim Grieshaber, with us. All right, so Grease, one of the things that kind of annoyed me and probably annoyed Mario a little bit about Miami's schedule is how many weeknight games the Hurricanes have. You know, the opening game, Friday night at Stanford. I don't mind playing Stanford on the road week 1 because if you get that out of the way, you know it's not a trap game when you play it the first week. Like that game I think would be more dangerous in the middle of the season somewhere, but that's a Friday game.
Especially
Then you play
trip. Yeah.
Right, and then you play a home game against FAMU on a Thursday night, and then you play Wake Forest on the road on a Friday night. Those are all still scheduled, but Miami was going to have a home Friday night game on November 20th against Virginia Tech. I don't know the reasons for why it was moved, but I'm so glad it was. They changed that from Friday, November 20th. They moved it to Saturday, November 21st, which means Mario and his assistants are going to get a chance to go out and scout high school football on Friday, recruit some players, which they love to do, and then play a regular Saturday game, which I love, Grease.
Yeah, me too. I hate Friday night games, and I don't mind a Thursday night game per year. I think Thursday night games can be a showcase and things like that, but not this game, not that game on a Thursday night. But I don't mind one or two of those, probably just one of them. But the Friday night games kill me. I don't know. I know it's TV money. I know it's an extra night to get ratings, and the TV partners love it because it's something to put on a Friday night. But to me, Friday night games don't feel like college football. It feels rushed. You're working that day. The tailgate feels rushed. The whole experience feels rushed. The numbers aren't the same. The crowd's not as big. The energy's not there. Everyone's coming off a long work week with no rest, and you're going right to a game. There's so many reasons why I hate those Friday night games. And let's be real. I mean, the players feed off that energy. Virginia Tech's going to be getting better every year now that James Franklin is there. I mean, I don't think anybody would argue with that. He's a really great coach, and Penn State really messed that one up, in my opinion. But when I think about Friday night games, I think about lower energy, smaller crowds, and most importantly, recruiting. High school football is the lifeblood of recruiting, and the coaches go out. You know, you'll have coaches going out all over South Florida on a Friday night watching kids that they could potentially bring in. And that's how they found kids. Like, you know, I remember Ray Lewis's story. They were playing against Jamie Jerome. And by the way, shout out to Ray Lewis. Happy birthday, number 52. Number 52 turns 51 today. Can you believe number 52 will be 52 next year? I went to school.
I feel really old.
I can't believe it. So happy birthday, Lulu, my man.
Happy
what
birthday.
An incredible player and leader and everything in this world, and a great, great former Cane. But Ray Lewis only ended up at the University of Miami for one reason. They went over there on a Friday night to scout Jamie German, who was the prize recruit in that class. If you remember number 7, Jamie German, right? Well, there happened to be a linebacker on the opposing team named Ray. Actually, he was a safety named Ray Lewis, who ended up being a starter at middle linebacker week 1 as a freshman in 1993. And they never would have found him had it not been for that Friday night trip over to see Jamie German. So there's all kinds of stories like that from coaches being out on the road and recruiting on a Friday night. So nobody hates those Friday night games more than coaches.
That's right, and 100%. And there's two sides to that as well. So the coaches get to go watch the games on Friday, and then you get to host high school players for recruiting visits
Great
on
point.
Saturday. You couldn't do that if it's a Friday because most
No
of them are
way.
playing games that day. So it's a great. It's good for, especially because that being a home game weekend, you don't lose that recruiting opportunity for visits, which is really good. So I'm happy for the Canes. Mark Fletcher has been doing a lot of content, Grease, and he was talking with Pete Nakos of On3 Sports, about kind of his tremendous college football playoff run. I mean, we would not have gotten as far as we did without Fletch. He was unbelievable.
Man.
And so he talked about a conversation that he had with his brother Jaheim at the end of the regular season. It was right after the Pittsburgh game at the end of the year. And he said, it was really just my mindset. He said, I was thinking so much during the regular season, just trying to be perfect, Mark said, worrying about the wrong things. We had some downtime after the Pitt game. Having that talk with my brother just made me let go and be free. They write, and On3, the conversation worked. Miami offensive coordinator Shannon Dawson could not find success in that game against Texas A&M until he started handing it off to Fletcher. The running back ripped off a 56-yard run late in the fourth quarter, eventually setting Miami up for its biggest win at that time in 2 decades. He closed out the A&M game with 172 yards before marching on for 90 yards against Ohio State, 133 against Ole Miss, and 112 in the national title game versus Indiana. He crossed the playoff run out, averaging over 6.7 yards per carry. And Grease, that really tracks, right, with Fletcher playing more free in the playoffs because I noticed like there were some times, and Fletcher had a very good regular season, of course, but there were times when maybe he was overthinking and running into the wrong gaps. But then in the playoffs, he was playing so instinctive, and he was breaking off those long runs. Like you could really tell he wasn't thinking so much, and he was just out there trusting his instincts. And he had one of the better playoff runs from a running back I think we've ever seen.
He was the best player on the field in the Indiana game. I mean,
Yeah.
I didn't think, you know what I mean? I can't think of anybody else in their performance in that game who was better than Mark Fletcher Jr. And he ran like a savage in the playoffs. He had a couple of really big regular season games. They didn't use him much against Notre Dame. They didn't use him hardly at all against Louisville. That was his worst game, 8 for 18. And, in the SMU game, a little bit better, but not a huge factor. And he didn't like that. And there's always someone right behind you at the University of Miami. Look at what Marty Brown did last year, right? And there's always going to be someone right there ready to take those carries. If you and it reminds me when Don Solinger was there, and you had Willis and you had Portis and you had all those guys. And hey, we'll take you right off the field and we'll put freshman Frank Gore out there and he'll average 9 yards a carry. So you better just be ready and ball out when you get the opportunity. But I think this speaks to the overall culture. I really do. Mario's culture. Think about the early Cristobal years and how tight those teams looked and how uptight they were. And they just didn't look like they were free. They didn't look like they had the confidence. I think these coaches have built this confidence into these players. Last year's run has built even more into them. And I watched that podcast and I can see and hear and feel the confidence oozing out of Mark Fletcher Jr., right? It's not just his mom driving across the country to see him play anymore, looking out for her baby. The whole world knows about Mark Fletcher Jr. now. And I think he's coming into this year free and easy and clear. And I think that's a team-wide thing. I think it's a culture thing. I think it gets impressed upon you from the minute you walk in the door now. The elite culture that has been built at the University of Miami to play free and play easy, but you can do that because of the discipline day by day, because you're showing up early, because you're leaving late, because you're putting the work in the weight room, because you're putting the work in learning the playbooks. You're going and talking to coaches in your off time, learning that playbook more and more. And when mentally, and I know this from all the life coaching I've done, Alex, not done for people, done for myself with other coaches, right? I know this. When you are mentally free, it's because you're prepared completely. And I would say this about Mario Cristobal's Miami Hurricanes. We are one of the most, if not the most prepared teams, and the culture is aimed in that direction. So I think Fletcher speaking like that is in big part because of the culture, and also because he realized, hey, I can be uptight and think I have to go exactly into this hole and I have to turn my body this way at this point in time, and I have to get the corner, or I have to turn in before I hit that corner and run between the whatever gap. No, he's not thinking that. He's like, just give me the ball and run. And when you're
Yeah.
that prepared and the instincts take over, that's where you get that free and easy feeling. And I will tell you this, everybody's talking about Mensa. Everybody's talking about Malachi Toney. I hear a lot about Cooper Barkate, but what about Mark Fletcher Jr. as a Heisman candidate, Alex? Let me just throw it out there.
Not going to argue. Not going to argue. I mean, I said, was it on my show today or yesterday that I'm gonna predict Mensa will get to the Heisman ceremony, and I said maybe Toney as well. I'll take all three of them, Grease, or if Fletcher gets in there over one of those other two, I'll take it.
Do you remember when Ken Dorsey was set up to win the Heisman and every campaign was Dorsey, 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 Dorsey? Only problem was Dorsey wasn't the best player on his team. Willis McGahee was.
Willis was.
And Willis McGahee not winning the Heisman still is a crime against humanity.
Same. Yeah, I agree.
This year of any Miami running back. But this reminds me of that year where people are talking about the transfer quarterback coming in and Malachi Toney, rightfully so. But Mario and Alex Mirabal, they love to run the football. And if Fletcher has the kind of year that the playoffs would seemingly predict that he will, he's going to be the best running back in the country.
Yeah, God willing. I love Fletch. Well, we appreciate everybody making Locked On Canes your first listen. And, of course, you hear Jim Grieshaber, a.k.a. Grease, after every Miami Hurricanes football game as the Postcast king. He hosts the Postcast here on Locked On Canes. Grease, thank you so much as always. I love having these chats with you every single week. Make sure you follow him on X at @JimGrease_. Thank you so much, my friend, and go Canes.
Go Canes. Let's go.
We'll talk to everyone next time on another episode of Locked On Canes. We are part of the #1 sports podcast network, the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.